Hey, Soul Warriors, this is Jessica Noel, and you are tuning into Uncovering Your Authentic Soulful Self. Today, in episode 4, we're going to be talking about standing in your power. So, first, I want to talk about this soul warrior energy. It's particularly relevant when we talk about standing in your power. This is why I greet you each episode calling you Soul Warrior. It's very important to have this balance of energy. So on the spiritual path, when we think about spirituality, a lot of people probably think about love and light and purity. And that's absolutely true. There is love, there is light, there is purity, there is kindness, there's peace. There also has to be strength and power, persistence and boundaries. It's balance, a balance of all. If you have too much of one, there's an imbalance, problems will occur. Too much of the other, same. It's really important to have a balance. And if you find yourself, as you reflect, to have an imbalance, it's just about being aware of that in your life. The alchemy of your life will start to bring that into balance for you. And your awareness and new choices will do the same. So when I talk about this soul warrior energy, I'm not talking about anger. Anger is an emotion. I'm talking about power and strength. I'm not talking about defending or attacking inappropriately. This is about having firm boundaries, not being influenced by others, standing firm in who you are. When I say standing firm in who you are, we do all have different qualities and strengths. We're also all here for different reasons, to learn different things, to experience, explore different things. Maybe we have different purposes, missions. But we all have something in common, and that is that we all have this authentic, soulful self, this divine nature. And so it's about finding the strength in that. You're grounding that, you're rooting that into possibly even your feet. So if you think about being aligned, being strong and powerful, you're not going to be crouched over, you're not going to be hunching. You need to stand up tall, you need to sit tall, being aligned all the way up and down, being grounded into your feet. I'm not really talking about grounding into the earth. There's value in that at times. I'm speaking about grounding your soulful self, your divine nature, which is where all your power is, into your feet, into your body, bringing that in, grounding it, feeling your feet on the floor, feeling your alignment, feeling your strength. That's where your power is. This is not an ego power. This is not a I am so great, I am this, I am that. This is as someone with divine nature, soulful self, here with importance, with strength, that's flowing through me. That's the type of power and strength that I'm referring to. So another tool that I want to mention in regards to that is you've got to claim that power. So as you're aligned, as you're sitting up straight, as you're walking tall, you're claiming that power as your soul divinity in the physical. You're grounding it through your feet. There's a claiming of it. That could even just be with your words, with your intention. Maybe you're saying in your head, I claim this power. I claim this. But I also want to talk about, having maybe you create a shield around you. There's a lot of different techniques that we could go into. So if you have any questions, definitely send me a message and I can give you some really valuable tools. But it's really as simple as visualization. You have a shield around you, you're standing up tall. Sometimes just being aligned and tall is enough of a shield for you, and having your intention of, I'm not going to be influenced by others, I'm standing in my power. But you can also simply visualize a shield be a texture, a color. It can be made of flames on the outside, like a bubble around you. And you just give it qualities. It's impenetrable. Other people's energies and influences don't come through that. So that's a nice technique for you if you find yourself particularly influenced by other people's energies. Maybe you feel other people's emotions to the point where it's distracting and overwhelming. That's a good tool. We can talk more about that when we discuss empaths in another episode, and different tools and techniques to help you with that. Also, I want to say that as you claim your power, as you stand in your power, you have to remember that there's not anybody coming to rescue you. I think there's often like this subconscious idea, and I've talked to a lot of people, especially recently, there's a lot of energy coming around of like standing in your power. And they talked about, and I can relate to it as well. Like there's some subconscious idea a lot of us have that someone's going to come and rescue us. Somebody's finally going to be like, okay, this is enough. Like especially when you're younger, maybe when you're first figuring out adulthood, but throughout too, for a lot of people, somebody's going to come and say, you can't do this anymore. You need to save a lot more money. You need to start doing this. Someone's going to come and rescue you and call out your choices and tell you that this is not the right way and there's a better way, or they're going to supply you with some things that you need. That's not real. You are your own rescuer. You're it. It's time for you to be your own savior. You're here to save yourself. You're here to create the life that you want. You're the master, the king or queen of your domain, of your life situation. That's another part that you claim. Don't let that be overwhelming. There's supports. So instead of someone coming to rescue you, that's another way we give our power away. Maybe you have someone in your life you feel like is rescuing you. It's time for you to really claim that and start to make choices. Use people as supports. There's all kinds of different supports. Sometimes it's people in your life, sometimes it's things, situations. And so that's wonderful to have support, but that's different than being rescued. You're the one that makes the choices, and you're the one that rescues yourself. One of the things that can be really helpful with this is to make a list of priorities. So if you start to look at your life and you feel like, wow, something just isn't right, something's not adding up here, I don't feel balanced. I've had times like that before. Years ago, I remember feeling like there was just something that was off. And anytime that happens, one of my go-tos is you gotta go back to basics. So maybe that can be helpful for you. Back to basics. For me in that moment, back to basics was write a priority list. What are the most important things in your life in order of importance? So as you make this priority list, what's the most important thing? 1, 2, 3, 4, however many there are. Make it simple, make it general. And as I did this, I saw that the way that I was dedicating my energy, the things I was dedicating my energy to at that time were not in alignment with the things most important to me. So I want you to really think about that. Maybe make your priority list if you feel that could be helpful for you. And then ask yourself, am I dedicating my energy accordingly to the order of priorities, the things most important to me? And if you're not, then change it. Start to make new behaviors. Start to let go of some of the things that are taking your energy and start to put it into the things that matter most to you. Remember, you are the master, you are the creator of your life, your reality, and what you have is you. Okay, good. This will help you to stand in your power, of course. It's very directly related to that. You're standing in your power. You're consciously choosing where you're putting your energy. You're not just being influenced by people's wants and needs and so on and so forth. Standing in your power, you're making sure that the things that matter to you, that's where you're putting your energy. I actually still have that priority list from years ago, and I still look at it from time to time, or at least recall it in my head, and I'm still doing this. I'm still in alignment, and just kind of as a nice spot check. It's still relevant. All the things are still in order of importance. It was general enough, still relevant. Good. I want to talk about influence of other people's energies and some of the differences of, we all have different dynamics amongst each other. And it's important that we take in information, we learn from each other. Different people, different relationships bring out different things in you, and it's supposed to. That's different than influence. So it's really important to discern the difference between these. I want to tell you about something that happened recently that is something that I observed, a teaching. So I was on the beach recently, and interestingly, this particular beach was filled with pigeons, not seagulls, pigeons. And amongst the pigeon was one crow. So there's one crow amongst all the pigeons. At first, some sort of story went through my head, just sort of this default story of, oh, maybe, this bird was was a baby adopted by the pigeons who didn't have a crow family, whatever that might be. And now she actually, I felt it was a she doesn't have any idea that she's a crow. So interestingly, that's where my mind went about this crow amongst the pigeons. As I continued to observe, I learned something very valuable. This bird absolutely knew that she was a crow. She was still behaving as a crow. She was not influenced by the pigeons. If you know anything about crows, crow medicine, and also crows in general are very intelligent. They have a different way of being than a lot of other birds, different movements and so on. She was very much standing in her power as a crow, not influenced by the pigeons, yet living amongst them in harmony. And interestingly, as I continued to watch, the pigeons were actually learning by example. Obviously, the crow's not going over and saying, you have to do this, you have to behave like do the crow way, but by example. And what was effective for these pigeons, in other words, what was in their highest good and really improving their lives, they started to entrain to this high frequency. That's what I would call it, like a high frequency or high vibrational crow energy, because the patterns and behaviors were effective and helpful. So they were moving more like the crow. There was many different behaviors they were doing that was the crow way rather than so much the pigeon way. So that's just a really nice story, I feel like, of how can you live amongst other people that are different than you in some key ways, yet stand in your power, and what effect does that have? That can have a really powerful effect on others. And it's just by them picking up your energy, you standing in your power, and then you're leading by example, and there's an entrainment that starts to happen. In other words, they start to follow. They start to follow just naturally without having to do anything. So that can be a really beautiful way to love and support and heal others. It's just by example. You standing in your power, and they may start to learn from you by example. Okay. So as we talk about people bringing out different aspects of you, you want to ask yourself, like, are these positive aspects of me that this is bringing out? Sometimes it's like, it's really important. We start to interact with someone crosses our path at just the right time. Maybe they bring us a certain energy that we really need to start accessing. And so like maybe they're a warrior. Maybe they have this warrior energy, and we happen to need to start to call upon that in our life situation. A lot of times you won't really notice until later, or maybe they're very much like on a spiritual path, and you're more like in this mentally emotional type of physical material world, and that starts to balance you in that way. As it starts to bring out that aspect, you start to learn from example. So these things are very important. That's how we learn from each other. Everyone in your life is a teacher to you. So I want to say that again. Everyone in your life is a teacher to you. They're teaching you different things. This goes back to another episode where we said, what is your life trying to teach you? What are the people in your life trying to teach you? Your children, your family, your friends, anyone in your life. So you want to feel the difference. Is this positive? Is this serving me? This energy that this is bringing out when I'm in this group of people, when I'm in this situation. If you start to look at it and observe, you're going to feel the difference. It's going to become clear to you. The key here is observation. You have to observe. A lot of times we get so excited. We want to be liked. We want to have fun. We have things that we want to get out of the situation. We want it to make us feel a certain way. And then we're no longer standing in our power because we're trying to get this, or we have this need, or we're trying to be liked. And then you're out of balance. First, at least in the beginning, you need to observe. That's how you stay aware. That's how you stand in your power. You have to observe what's happening. That's how you understand and feel if a situation is in your best interest or if it's not, or a person. Observe. So that brings us to the next topic of spiritual teachers. So power and influence, and at times manipulation of spiritual teachers, power dynamics. There's certain red flags that you want to look for, and these are usually ego. These are usually red flags that are reflecting ego issues. Everybody has, as we've talked before, everyone has wounds, everyone has unconscious patterns. This is part of why you need to observe and you need to stand in your power. Otherwise, you're going to be getting tangled with these other people's unconscious patterns and wounds. And it's far easier to get swept up and tangled in other people's unconscious wounds and behavioral patterns than it is to stand in your power. It takes more energy. It takes more awareness. And like I said before, it takes observation. You absolutely have to do this with spiritual teachers or any teachers for that matter. That's particularly an easy situation for you to give your power away, right? Because there's inherently often a hierarchy or a power dynamic, especially with many types of teachers, the way that they go about it. One of the red flags that has come to my awareness recently is if someone is trying to become your teacher, if they're trying to mentor you, if they're trying to become your teacher, that's a red flag by itself. What's that about? There should always be a attraction. There's not promotion, there's just attraction. Yeah, sure, they might advertise and get the word out there that they're, they do this or that, but it's up to the student, to somebody that wants to learn from them. If you want to call it student, if you just want to call it, we're going to learn from each other, good. It's up to them to decide if that's somebody that they want to learn something from, and if so, what is that? So if someone's approaching you and they're trying to become your mentor or teacher, they're trying to put that energy on you, that's a red flag by itself. That's not a spiritual teacher. That's not a spiritual, a good way to start a spiritual relationship. That's more of an ego desire, right? They want to have a power or hierarchy over you. So think about it like that. Think about it like this. Would I do that? You want to ask yourself that. That's a good tool, in my opinion, to check on what is going on in the situation. Sometimes when you're in it, it's harder to see the details of it. But look at that. Like, would I do this? Would I try to become someone's teacher? Would I behave this way? Would I say these things? Because as you start to look at it like that, you might find, no, I would never do that. Like, for example, for me, I've never approached someone and said, I want to be your teacher. Like, I'm mentoring you on jail. I would never do that. People come to me when they want to come to me. They come and go sometimes. They're with me for years and years and years. It's just really, what do they need? How can I support you on your path? And I'm here if you need me. And it should be like that. So I certainly am not someone that's perfect. Of course, there's always things that I have to purify. It doesn't matter how far. The other thing I want to say is it doesn't matter how far along on the path you have. I've talked before about someone that's my teacher and he's fully God realized, enlightened. He's always still purified. There's always still things that he works on. There's never an end to it, no matter where you are. So what you have to do is really commit to that. So I've committed, I always will commit to learning and growing and changing as needed and finding more things to purify. And that's really important for all of us to do. So you want to ask yourself, if you find yourself in power dynamics where someone is, maybe it's a friend or maybe a family member, maybe your partner even, they're seeming to treat you like you don't really know what you're doing. They know more than you and they're like trying to teach you. Maybe you're even, I see this all the time. Maybe you're trying to just share with your friends. You're just trying to share what's going on with your life. This happens a lot. And they immediately start giving advice and telling you what to do. And so you might want to preface it. I was having a conversation with my friend the other day. We talked about that. You might want to preface it like, I'm going to share this with you, but I don't want any feedback or information. I'm just sharing things with you. I don't want you to tell me what to do. You might have to start to preface it like that. That's one way you can stand in your power and shift that dynamic, because you do already know what to do. You have ways to access your own wisdom and stand in your own power. And you can receive support from people that you feel safe and safe to be vulnerable, to ask for their wisdom or their guidance, their opinion. But if it's something where they're putting it on you, you might need to preface it that way. A lot of times people are just trying to be helpful. They're trying to solve your problems because they care about you. So it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. But if you're trying to work on standing in your power and you have this dynamic with some people, maybe they're trying to mother you, or father you, and that's not what you need, that's not what you want, you can shift that dynamic in these types of ways. And also, you want to really ask yourself, if you have these situations in your life, are you giving your power away? Because people aren't going to be doing this if you're not allowing it, right? So you have to ask yourself, in what way might I be colluding with my own oppression. And that's really interesting because that can really be happening in all different parts of your life. So let me say it again. In what way might I be colluding with my own oppression? In what way might I be giving my power away? So if you're having some of these dynamics with the mothering, or someone trying to be your teacher, or acting like they know more than you, are you giving them that power? Have you allowed that dynamic to take place? Did you need that dynamic at some point? Sometimes we struggle and we feel like, oh, I want to be taken care of. Just somebody take it away. It's just too hard. I don't want to do this. Tell me what to do. That's okay. Yeah. I mean, that's where you were. So maybe that's how the relationship started. Or maybe that you went through a hard time and now it's like, this is the dynamic that's gotten set up. You can change it now. If they can't do that with you, you might have to take a break, come back to it another time, or maybe it's just not the right thing. You have to decide. The point is that you can communicate ahead of time, like I talked about, do a variety of different things to start to shift the power. Even sometimes just standing in your power, sitting up straight, tall, grounding your strength and power to your feet. You're projecting a very different energy, and so you're going to get a very different energy back. So often you don't even have to say or do anything differently because you're projecting something very different. Okay, so that's just going to happen in the present moment. You just see how things unfold. So I want to talk a little bit more about, just real briefly, standing tall, straight, sitting straight. We've talked in this meditation group that I do about different energies and having boundaries energetically. And, some people feel afraid to do that. And so when you have a fear of going into, if it's a child, for example, sometimes they have a fear of going to a dark room, or they have a, different, for adults, there's all kinds of different fears. So when we're in fear, when we're feeling that way, we tend to just kind of like, we hunch our shoulders, we bend over a little bit, and there's a caving in. Nope, you've got to stand up straight, tall, you claim it, you own it. For example, let's go with the example of like a child going into a dark room. Let's say it's their bedroom, they want to go in this dark room and they kind of have a fear. Well, maybe there is like a weird energy in there. That could totally be. Children are sensitive. But I don't care. You stand up you stand up tall and straight, whatever that is. You can turn lights on, you can use tools, in other words. This is like an analogy. You can use tools, turn lights on, do what you need to do. But you stand up tall, that's your room, and you claim it. That's yours. You claim it. So that's not like an ego thing. That's a strength and a power, right? You're claiming it. You're standing up tall. You're not letting it, sink you down. You're not letting the fear take you. You stand up tall. You claim it. You are divine in the flesh. You are soul and body. You are very powerful, far more than you realize. For most of us, it's far more than we even realize. So we don't go into this. We want to have a balance. So also, like, if you're clearing your house, like a lot of people, they like to sage their house. They like to use incense or use sage or whatever that is. So if you're clearing energies from a person, if you're a healer maybe, from a person, from a house, you can't do it with that. Oh boy, hey, you got to be a soul warrior. You're standing up straight. You're standing up in a way. You're going into battle to some extent, right? But it's through this love and through this light, because that's the most power. But it's also through strength. You know who you are, you know what you're doing, you're claiming it, and so you're moving forward as such. So do that in all areas of your life, right? Hopefully that's helpful. So again, balance of strength and boundaries with purity of heart. You want to have fairness. You don't want to have rigidity, right? So when I say strength and boundaries, there's not a rigid, a rigidity. I think that we could probably do a whole episode on that. So thinking about balance, though, just for a simple way of describing that, rigidity is over here with boundaries. They're inflexible. They don't take into account what's going on in the situation. There's not an open-mindedness. There's a black and white type of thing. And then over here there's no boundaries. You got to be right here, right? That's balance. So think about, really and always, balance in the middle. So we talked already a little bit about like not tangling with other people's unconscious behaviors and wounds. So justice and fairness, and thinking about, yes, everyone has faults. Yes, you have faults. We all have strengths and weaknesses. And so one teaching that I recently have come across was, it was a booklet called, was it something about healing? Oh boy, I can't remember the title, but it's about fault finding nature. It's about like healing and, really bringing that into balance, your fault finding nature, so that you're looking at the good in people. So the whole point of the booklet was not looking at the faults in others, only looking at their strengths, only looking at the good qualities. And so this is, I believe, as I read this and I looked at this, my take on this is that it's very important to see the faults and the wounds and the unconscious patterns in others. But it's important, what it is not to judge them. So we can't, at this point in time, I was just talking to a friend about this the other day, we can't just look at this like, okay, we're going to ignore all the faults and we're only going to look at the good in people. If you have a fault-finding nature that's really intense, maybe that's a good place to start. But in general, we just can't do that, because what's going to happen is we're going to get tangled into other people's unconscious patterns and their wounds. It's going to cause problems for us. So what we have to do is be aware of these patterns and wounds in others without judging them. So that's your key. You don't judge them, but you're aware of them and you focus on their strengths, sure. But we have to be aware of where they're at so that we don't get tangled with them. And how to do that? Observation, like we talked about before. Standing tall, standing in your power, and observing what's going on. And that's what can help you. You can absolutely, somebody that has unconscious patterns and wounds that are not so healthy, you can still have a relationship with them. In some cases, it's going to depend on how harmful what types and how harmful this particular unconscious patterns and wounds are, and maybe even what type of relationship you have with them. But oftentimes, you can still have a relationship with them. It's really just about not interacting with them in that way, in the area of their patterns and wounds, or interacting with them in such a way that you're sidestepping them. Okay, so you have to be aware of it first, of course. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about is when we are interacting with someone, this is really going to be talked about a lot more when we discuss more details about relationships, but just briefly, when we interact with somebody and maybe they're telling us, your behavior is, or you always do this, or you always do that. And if you've heard that a couple times, that you always do this, or you always do that, or you have this quality, if you've heard that a couple times, or if you find that a situation has repeated itself a couple of times in your life, like maybe a friend gets upset with you, maybe a friendship ends, and maybe there's a common thread, you really need to look at that. What's happening here? Is there any truth to what they're telling me? So let's say it's a partner and they're telling you, you always do this, you always do that. I want you to try to say, I will take that into consideration. I will sit with that. And that might be hard for you to do. And you might say that through gritted teeth and then go take a break. That's fine. But it's really important for you to think about it later. Take a walk, consider it. Is there any way that I have been not seeing that all this time? Because these shadow parts of us, these unconscious patterns, they're not conscious. So we don't see them at all. So keep that in mind. We're not seeing them at all. You guys have probably all had a time, maybe multiple times, where all of a sudden you see something in yourself that has been years and you've been doing it, and all of a sudden you see it for the first time. But it's been there for all these years, right? So we have to really take that into consideration. What's happening in our life? Are we doing something we're not seeing yet? And maybe we aren't, because like I said, other people have unconscious patterns and wounds. So that might just be theirs. And they keep saying that because that's from their perspective. They think that's what's happening, but it's about them. Maybe it's both. But all you can do is you work on your path. You work on, healing your wounds and your unconscious patterns. That's what you do, right? So it's always about how can I learn and grow from this? And again, you're standing in your power with it. So you're not giving it away. Okay, I probably am doing that. Yeah. No, you need to think it through. Talk to someone that you trust that might be able to help you identify things that you're not seeing yet. First, take it into consideration yourself. See what you can find. And maybe talk to someone else and then take that into consideration. Okay, but don't talk to a whole bunch of people that also have unconscious wounds, because they're all going to see it through their lens, and that's going to get messy. Okay, so think about it yourself first. Contemplate. Maybe talk to one other person that you know can see things you can't. Maybe they have a lot of wisdom, that you trust their judgment, and then go from there. Okay. So don't reject it outright. Openness, but you're taking the information in, but you're also not getting tangled into their wounds and their behaviors. Good. Okay. Last thing, soul connections. Okay, I want to talk about soul connections. So have you ever met someone that was just like, you felt like you had known them for many years, decades, your whole entire life? It was like instantly there was this connection and you felt like you've known them forever. Maybe they felt like home to you, maybe some combination of that. Or maybe you met somebody and your eyes met and it was like this wild explosion of energy and familiarity, recognition. It could be an intensity of power. It could be that familiarity home feel, or maybe just some sort of combo. But it catches your attention. It's very intense. So for those of you that have had that, I term that as a soul connection. It's very unique. It's very rare. It doesn't happen all the time. Some people may have never had it happen. Sometimes you might have had it happen once or twice. Or maybe, you know, it depends on our path and what we're here to learn, what we're here to do. We might have a lot of people in our life like that, quite a few. Still very rare. Still, most of the people that you meet are not going to be that type of connection. Still more rare, right? And you know it when it happens. So what I want to talk about with that is using discernment. You have to stay in your power. That's a harder one sometimes, to stay in your power and to observe, because it's so intense. It's so beautiful. It's so exciting. And if you're romantic like I have been and am, you might just take that ball and start running with it, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Oh boy, but how I have had to balance with that, right? You have to use balance. You have to wait. You have to see. What I can tell you from experience, myself personally and other people that I've worked with, is that the healthiest way, in my opinion, with my experience and what I've seen as well, is you have to understand that, yes, it's important. It's supposed to catch your attention. It's here for a reason. It's here to teach you something. Go back to teach. What is this here for me to learn? What's this here to teach me? It is supposed to catch your attention. It's there for a reason. Absolutely. Maybe your mind is telling, oh, this is like the person I've been waiting for and spend the rest of my life with them, and so on and so forth. This is like a lifetime partner. Or maybe friend. Oh my gosh, this is like the best friend, this soul brother, whatever, that I've been waiting for. Maybe, and I hope it is, because that's a beautiful thing. But maybe not. Maybe it's going to teach you a hard lesson, but an important one. Some of the hard lessons are the most important ones. Or maybe it's there to just teach you something lightly, but very important too. So we know that it's here to teach us something. We don't know how it's going to end. So do your best to bring yourself back, stay in the moment, understand, yes, there is importance here, significance, the energy is powerful. I can feel that. You've got to just go moment by moment. And you have to do the standing in your power, because it's very easy to give your power away in that regard. And you have to always make sure that you are being aware and observant. So very much observe. Again, something important to learn there: staying in your power, observe, maintain awareness. Because soul connections are beautiful, but what you have to remember is there's personality. There's personality can be beautiful too. There's unconscious patterns of wounds there, and that may make it so that it's not going to work. Or that may be that they're such that, you know, you can work this out together, and that it's still a beautiful compatibility. So you have to wait and see. Good. So that wraps up today. So let's take a moment and just take a nice deep breath. Close your eyes, relax. Nice deep breath. Feel yourself aligned and strong, rooted into your feet, grounding the power. You are strong. You are powerful. And you are so, so beautiful. I so enjoyed connecting with you today, and I will look forward to the next time. Bye for now.